Good evening. I want to thank all of you for attending tonight's virtual town hall regarding the opening plan for Yellow Springs schools for the upcoming school year. I'm Terry Holden, Superintendent, and it is my hope this evening that I can answer questions from you and hear your input about preference in returning to school. This feedback will be critical in helping me make a final decision about our plan for the 2020-2021 school year. I am joined tonight by Yellow Springs Teachers Association co-presidents Sarah Amin and Kate Lohmeyer, and Nancy Bussey, president of the Yellow Springs Chapter 644 of the Ohio Association of Public School Employees. I may ask them to answer some of your questions. I would like to provide a bit of an introduction about how we got here today. On March 12th, Governor DeWine ordered that all school buildings in Ohio would be closed beginning March 17 through April 3rd. On March 30, this order was extended until May 1st. On April 20, this order was extended again, this time closing school buildings for the remainder of the school year. During the time the school buildings were closed in the spring, Yellow Springs took an approach that was quite different from many school districts. To be empathetic to the unique needs of each family, we utilized resources from Inquire Ed and took a thematic, inquiry-based approach to our instruction. This approach aligned with our vision as a district and was consistent across all grade levels. Academic content was framed around an essential question for each week. It was our hope that this approach would allow students to continue to learn and grow and lessen the social emotional toll the pandemic and remote learning was putting on children and families. While this made sense at that time, we've heard loudly and clearly that this did not work for many of our students. As we explore our options about returning in the fall, both the Yellow Springs Teachers Association and the district's classified union have communicated their hope to begin the school year in a 100% online format until the time at which health conditions change. We are at a place now in Ohio where cases of COVID-19 are quite honestly higher than they were in March when the governor closed all schools. And looking at the current trends on the COVID-19 dashboard just this afternoon before this meeting, it seems as if cases, hospitalizations, and ICU admissions are up and at an alarmingly steep rate. In many ways, we've gone backwards. Greene County remains in the orange risk level, and only one county that touches us is in the yellow or the lowest risk level. Despite the scientific data available to us, there are still heated discussions about wearing masks, both here in Yellow Springs and nationally. The village of Yellow Springs has taken steps that other communities have not. The trails in Glen Helen were closed. There's been a continual media blitz about COVID-19 safety measures, and legislation was recently passed requiring masks in the Central Business District. Yet, Yellow Springs does not exist in a bubble. The village is crowded with visitors all over every day, but particularly on weekends. Our students and staff come from both within and outside of the village. Village residents and students work all over the greater Dayton area and beyond. Determining how we reopen our schools this fall is a tremendously difficult decision. I have to weigh many issues: the health and safety of staff, the health and safety of students and families, the academic and mental health needs of students, and the hard economic realities of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want everyone to know that our ultimate goal is to safely get back to in-person, face-to-face instruction 5 days a week. There is no perfect plan. Any plan we land on will have challenges and obstacles. For example, if we come back in a hybrid option, which is 2 days in and 3 days remote for students. Here is just a short list of some of the challenges. Consistently enforcing the mask requirement, procuring additional PPE for our school nurses, relocating some of the health clinic spaces required by Greene County Public Health, ensuring we have space to social distance even with only 50% of our students attending each day, procuring an additional space, Antioch University Midwest, for our middle school students, monitoring the air quality in our classrooms, and being able to switch to a 100% remote learning environment with little advance notice if we have a COVID outbreak. If we come back in a 100% online approach, here is just a short list of some of our challenges. Engaging students in academics in a way that is both rigorous and meaningful. Providing support for our struggling students. Meeting the required supports by law for our students on individualized education plans and 504 plans. Attempting to creatively find a way to ease this burden on working families. Again, there is no easy answer. And in my case, unfortunately, it's been left at the district level with superintendents to make these decisions. I ask that as we dialogue tonight, we remain mindful of each other and the difficult position this pandemic has created for all of us. Emotion and rhetoric are running very high. I know that we can be empathetic, compassionate, flexible, and open-minded as we navigate through these difficult discussions and times. That's what makes Yellow Springs different. On our website are some questions that have previously been posed by parents in email, phone calls, and on social media. To ask questions this evening, please submit your responses in the live chat box on the right-hand side of your video player. To post in live chat, click into where it says say something and begin typing, then click the send icon. I'm just gonna give you a warning that I will go as quickly as I can, but sometimes your questions might scroll a bit quicker than I can speak. So again, thank you for taking time out and being present with us tonight. The first question, I think, is while the curriculum wasn't necessarily effective, the other stated goal to provide support for our students from teachers was definitely met. Thank you, teachers. Thank you. Is there another question? While I'm waiting for some questions, let me remind viewers kind of where we stand. I sent out a parent survey that had basically two options. The first option was a 1A and 1B, and they go together. So that is a hybrid option where students grouped in A's and B's would go to school 2 days a week and then have remote learning 3 days a week. Those students who could not physically come to school or whose families would choose not to send them at this time would do remote learning provided by a third party. The reason for the third party is that if Yellow Springs teachers are teaching in a hybrid environment, they can't then take on that additional responsibility because it does look different. The second option is just the entire district goes online in a 100% format. So the way that would look is students would take their actual schedule. So it is the Yellow Springs curriculum taught by Yellow Springs teachers. So just so we can all have that in our mind. Okay, here's a question. What is the likelihood that the governor will follow other states and mandate remote learning? Whew, that is the question of the night. I do not know. And I mean, folks, we've been doing this for 4 months, and we all know that as soon as I say something, something changes. So there's always that possibility that Governor DeWine will do that. And I would imagine if cases continue to go up, he might very well do that. What will make the determination of which plan that is used? I realize we have input as parents, but what will go into the final decision? You know, I will make the final decision, but after long consideration from the stance of our staff, our teachers and staff, as well as parents. In the end, my overall goal has to be safety. We are so fortunate here in Yellow Springs to have a talented veteran staff. But that also means that it puts some of our people in difficult positions. So it would be looking at all of the input that I receive and then giving my recommendation to the Board of Education. Sports, could you address sports and extracurricular activities? Yes. Students may still participate in sports, both in Yellow Springs and in other districts around Ohio. Any student that's in a virtual learning environment is still allowed to participate. I think the size kind of dictates that because it's much smaller than what you would have, generally speaking, in the classroom. So there would be that opportunity for students to participate in interscholastic athletics. In terms of other curricular activities, I think depending upon how we return, at that point we can have discussions about that. And I think it's something we should have a discussion about because we know the connection that kids need. I would like to know, sorry, it's going so quickly. I would like to know if you can describe what a typical day would be like for a second grader should we pursue the YS virtual school option. What time would start time be? What time would breaks be? So the Ohio Department of Education is requiring any school district, if you go remote in part or full, to submit a plan. So in that plan, we have to describe things like this. But in particular, for a second grade student, I was just looking at a sample daily schedule today. It would, for the most part, follow our regular day. Students would participate in synchronous, that same time with the teacher, and asynchronous. Maybe there are independent activities they do on their own, but they would indeed follow a schedule all day. That is a big difference from what it was in the spring. Again, we have to think about thresholds for younger students, but this would be, as I mentioned before, students following the regular curriculum. If option one is our only option, what is the plan when a teacher and or student tests positive? Is there an expectation of self-quarantine? All of that is stipulated outside of Yellow Springs. That is stipulated by Greene County Public Health, and our draft safety document, as well as the Greene County Public Health document that was just revised today, is on our website. What is the threshold which will result in the school closing the physical facility? I think one threshold is a purple risk level, but there are also other thresholds, and many districts are going connected somehow to the state threat assessment level. It's based on your student population. Will new students be given an option to have a tour of the school so they do not go in blindly and not know their way around? Yes. Thank you for someone is telling me the governor is supposed to address schools on Wednesday. Thank you, Heather. What do the numbers look like right now? Is it possible to do away with a hybrid option so that we can help those families who need childcare, internet, etc.? Maybe somebody else can help me. I apologize. I'm trying to understand the question. What supports would exist for parents who work full-time and cannot take time off work? That's one of the challenges, isn't it? That challenge exists both ways. It exists if we are hybrid and we have to pivot out on a moment's notice because of an outbreak. And it certainly exists if we do 100% online. I am open. I am committing the district to engage in collaboration around that. Particularly should we go the 100% online route, and I don't know if anybody else has a thought about that, but it is a challenge, and we recognize that. If the choice is online, what kind of support will there be for an academically rigorous curriculum? So I will say teachers have been working this summer on books that I've been throwing at them about how to really effectively teach in an online format. So we will still have our AP courses. We will have all of our courses. I think music and art may look a little different, but we will still have those courses. I'm gonna toss this to the YSCA if you want to add something to this.
Sure. Yeah, I think that YSCA, as mentioned, is committed to solving these problems together, or these issues that we may face together. And also, when thinking about the curricular decisions, we understand as educators that we have a learning curve too. So the learning curve is not just for students and for families, but it will be for us as well. But we're committed to the learning, and we're ready to lean into the process that it's going to take to collectively put something together that will best serve this community.
Since the risk profile is different for younger children, are you considering separate approaches for Mills Lawn and high school, middle school? I did see something this morning that said basically students who are 10 years of age or older really can transmit the virus as much as adults can. So the answer to that would lie in what is our capacity, our staffing capacity to be able to do that. And that really is connected to another question about how many teachers with underlying conditions would need to retire or take leave if we go in person. I think these are health conditions that are covered by a wide variety of laws. But again, what do we know about this disease? The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has put out a list of characteristics that would put you in a vulnerable category. Could be age, could be any number of health conditions, and so that would impact perhaps not just our veteran teachers, but also teachers of any age. And those are considerations I have to make as I move through this and make a decision. Is it possible to consider a delayed start to the year and just go into summer next year, online or in person, just for more time? Yes, of course, that's possible. We have extended the school year for students. Not extended the school year, pushed back the start date for 1 week for students earlier in the summer in anticipation of having to do some extra professional development. But that certainly is a suggestion we can consider. Given that there is currently only one active case in Yellow Springs, what will be the threshold for resuming in-person school? I don't have verification that there's only one active case in Yellow Springs. I'm not doubting that. I just haven't seen that. And my threshold is, what's the capacity for me to have a staff to provide in-person instruction? We are small. There are tremendous advantages to being small. But on the flip side, that does not give us the flexibility to perhaps come up with multiple alternatives when we consider our school start plans. When you say that students would follow their school schedule under option 2, do you mean synchronous learning during a typical school day? What would option 2 look like for families? I think part of it certainly would be synchronous. The Ohio Department of Education is going full force. So I have a whole guidance document on how districts must record attendance. So whether that's via Actually, we are synchronously meeting like we are now. And as teacher, I'm marking that, or whether it's in assignments that I give students, and I calculate how much time I think the student may take to complete the assignment. But in general, again, and I'm going to ask anybody if they want to jump in, I think we follow a schedule. I mean, that's what it looks like. If you're in college classes, you know, there are both synchronous and asynchronous components, and that's the way online learning works. If we do a hybrid option, why split the kids by Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday? Why not Monday, Tuesday for first group, then cleaning Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday for next group? That certainly is possible. Just an example, and that makes sense. We have heard the position of the teachers union. What is the staff union's position? Their position mirrors the teachers association in that they prefer to return virtually until the health condition is safer. Student question: this year I will be a junior, and as a student who would regularly get special help on work, I'm wondering if there are any ideas already floating around to support students like me at all grade levels. Here is my thought about that. And I think if we can come to some, if we do go 100% remote, I think the reason we would do that is because of, one reason would be because we can't necessarily guarantee in our physical facility that we can keep everybody safe. Rooms are small, even at half capacity. So if we have small group sessions on campus or one-on-one tutoring, that in my mind addresses that question, and it really gets at why we can't go back in person should that be the case, and it would simply be a number thing. I'm quite aware that students need extra help, and particularly face-to-face help. So that would be certainly my suggestion if we go that route. As a parent of a rising 7th grader, I'm concerned about the use of a non-district facility. I have additional concerns beyond COVID-19 with the return to campus. What is the plan to secure the Antioch-McGregor campus, ensure there is no interaction with non-school persons, and sanitize the facility? Jack Hattern and I actually took a tour of Antioch Midwest. There currently is no one in the building. They are not holding any courses there. So when we visited, there were, I think, 2 people using the building each day. But again, if that is our route, then certainly we would spell all of that out. We've already discussed sanitation, and that would be provided in our agreement. What is the state's plan for sports? Is it play as usual? Right now, the OHSAA has said certain sports can proceed, and those are what they call non-contact sports. So that would be tennis, volleyball, maybe golf. We're waiting to hear about soccer and cross country, which they consider contact sports. The OHSAA submitted a plan to the governor, and they are awaiting the governor's approval, and that is approval for interscholastic competition. These groups have already been doing some kind of safe remote training this summer. How have the teachers prepared over the past 4 months to shift to online learning? I'm going to throw that to the YSEA.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start this one, Kate. Well, first of all, I just want to say that once the spring quarter was finished, the first thing we did as teachers is kind of reflect on how that experience went. We realized that there are things that we need to improve on. There are some things that went well, some things not so great. So that's where we started. What can we do better? And one of the things was definitely staying connected with students, how to engage students one-on-one, virtually, or small groups virtually. So we definitely noticed that they needed a little bit more structure with engaging with the learning that we're facilitating with them. But other than that, we've just been in groups and with each other, kind of sharing articles about best practices with virtual learning. And talking about how we're going to get our content across in an engaging way.
I'd like to say too, kind of on the vein of curricular decisions, YSEA is at this point recognizes that we're facing a very non-traditional experience, no matter what that experience is going to be for our young people. And so with that, we feel very confident that in collaboration with this community and with the board and administration, that we can even take this opportunity that's perhaps a non-traditional and maybe even seen as an impediment to create something or to explore something as it relates to curriculum and online instruction and engagement with our young people, and how we can elevate that and how we can really have in-depth conversations about how that can look, that includes students and brings them to the table as well, because we know that their input is super valuable and meaningful to the process. And so I think that something else that the community should know is that the educators are ready to take that step and to lean in and have those courageous conversations to get us to a point where maybe we in Yellow Springs have taken school to a different level.
I also want to say that in the spring, when we had to do this in a very quick time frame, the district was able to secure some technology coaching for teachers, but we have already arranged for about 4 times as much for next year. So we're trying to build in a support system, no matter how we return, that teachers have support. Would it be possible to have virtual clubs? Absolutely. I think that is an idea definitely worth exploring. Are there possibilities of pod or study groups that some students and families are already physically and socially engaged in? Yes. Again, I think no matter what we decide on, no matter what I recommend to the board, we are going to have to think a little differently about how we're going to meet the needs of our students and families. Can you scroll down? I apologize. It looks like the question is about the numbers of the ongoing survey. What are the preliminary numbers showing? I think that right now it's I don't know. Stephanie told me, and I'm not sure right now. I will say it was about equal. However, I want to make sure that everyone knows that I have committed to parents that they can ask questions. We were going to have this tonight, and then parents can take until Friday to indicate their preference. Again, this will give me valuable feedback. Certainly, the sooner we have that, the better. But these are important decisions. How many kids have been signed up by Donna First for the online teaching for the fall semester? I can tell you that was about 30. But that was really a different question. So I think the answers might be different to that now. Donna First is out because, like some administrators, she does not work in July. However, she communicates with both myself and my assistant, Stephanie Stratton. So if there are any issues, please let me know. She had all of that language pretty clearly stated in her email. Is the village looking back into YS Fiber by Mavecca so we have enough bandwidth? So I know we worked with the village to allow Mavecca to add bandwidth. So I'm not sure if that question is, or are we going to expand that or not? But I think some of these questions are certainly possibilities. In the spring, we provided hotspots for families who did not have Wi-Fi internet access at home. and we're able to meet everyone's need that I'm aware of, and we asked several times. So we all already have a commitment to that. Again, no matter what way we return. The YS Community Foundation has shared plans to assist in a financial way. Okay, I don't know that that's a question. How is a young student who has to go to daycare because their parents are working going to do a full day of schoolwork, whether synchronous or asynchronous? That's the challenge. That's the challenge in a hybrid situation where we come 2 days a week in a remote 3, and that's the challenge in a 100% virtual environment. I don't have an answer for that one right now. I've had lots of communication from community members as well as staff about possible solutions to that. But right now, I don't have an answer to that. My kindergartner can't complete 5 to 6 hours of schoolwork a day after I get home from work at 4:30. I understand. I think that's hooked to the question before. Have Yellow Springs schools considered outdoor classrooms and/or ways to integrate outdoor and experiential activities to an online curriculum? So, yes. I mean, yes, we can have outdoor classrooms to the extent that the weather cooperates, but we always have to have a plan B for that. But I think with our approach, physical education and kind of hands-on experiences are part of what makes us Yellow Springs, and I think there are ways to bring that into whatever approach we take. Kate or Sarah, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, I think, again, this question is a great nod to creative solutions. And, we believe that there are those creative solutions out there that exist. And we have the space and the bandwidth to pull those off. But it will take a dedicated effort, conversation, and a commitment to an idea to try to evolve it together. But absolutely, I mean, teachers are fully ready for creative solutions and out of the box thinking.
Can we make these decisions by quarters and not semesters? Yes. So I'll own that one. I think in my initial communication, I said semesters, probably because that day I was feeling a bit more cynical about the country's ability to rebound from this in 9 weeks, but certainly quarters, absolutely. Are you considering half-day kindergarten, whether hybrid or online? We've not had that discussion. So up to right now, that has not been a consideration. Will open enrollment acceptance continue to be honored regardless of whatever decisions the YS district makes? We've accepted open enrollment students like we do each year. Our open enrollment is closed right now, unless numbers change. So we are closed for open enrollment currently. Would less teachers need to take leave if we go 100% virtual? What do the teachers prefer? Again, I think I've stated what both the teachers and the other staff prefer. I think what I want everyone to understand is that there is law, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, that I must follow. And it's very specific, and it's about absences related to COVID, and there are multiple criteria. But one thing going all virtual allows is for those teachers and aides and for whom their work can be done remotely, it allows them to continue to work. So in the end, it comes around to as part of a factor in determining what's our capacity to go back either way in the fall. Sorry. So I apologize. I'm not trying to compare a kindergarten student to a 9th grade student or a college student. I will say our kindergarten teachers are pretty outstanding, and they were able to engage students in the spring. I'm sure they would say if they were here, they could do it better, but whether we go 3 days a week virtual or all virtual, we have to figure that out. So I apologize if I came across as comparing your kindergartner to an older student. If 1A is chosen, will there be exceptions to wearing masks? And if so, will parents be given notice how many students in each school grade won't be wearing masks? Currently, as I sit right now, the only exceptions to wearing masks will be those that are stated in health documents. We've seen that younger students can wear masks. Now, for how long, that's a question based on age, but a mask requirement is a mask requirement. And again, that's one of the challenges. It is absolutely one of the challenges coming back in a hybrid or full-on in-person environment. If hotspots aren't working, is there a way to assist those families to get internet provided to them? Is there somewhere we can donate to this cause? Yes, I'm sure the foundation would take donations. I think there's been a big push nationally to get more universal access. I think I heard some of the hotspots weren't working because it was not an issue with the hotspot, but I think we have areas in the township where it's just hard to get service. And I think, how creative are we going to be? And again, these would be issues, quite honestly, if we were in person, face to face, because we all know that there's work that students have to do at home. This is different because it's the majority of the work. I get that, but this is a problem at a national level. And again, I don't know if it's increasing bandwidth in a way that's similar to what the village has done. I don't know. Again, these are things that can be explored. What about early elementary classes isolated to their pod by classroom with one teacher only? I think that certainly is what some districts are doing. It still presents, and I say this not saying that we've made a decision, but I say this in that it still presents a problem when you might have pods operating together, but you still have a large group in the building. You still have students and teachers who have to travel to the restroom, travel to lunch. And so, there is that risk. It runs a little counter to the state's kind of limitation on large group gatherings, but it has been discussed keeping students in pods. Will teachers broadcast from their classrooms or their homes under the virtual learning plan? It would be my preference that unless they fell under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, that they broadcast from their rooms. It's easier to provide support there. Clearly, because there's no students, there's not that size concern for transmission. But again, that decision comes based upon how we return to school. How are working at home families supposed to deal with the non-synchronous learning, especially when many families have multiple school-age children? I think good question. I don't know. In my mind, the synchronous learning sometimes presents more of a problem than the asynchronous, because you can do asynchronous at any time. So as I'm reading this, I'm thinking that maybe there's a request for synchronous learning, a complete day of synchronous learning. I don't know if anybody has a different interpretation of this. I apologize. The guidance from Greene County Health, Public Health, indicates that if we do face-to-face learning, that if my child has a runny nose, I need to exclude them from the school environment for at least 10 days. How is this workable? If I'm remembering correctly, that's part one. It's a 3-part piece. If your child has this and this, etc., that is in the guidance document on our website. I just want folks to know that's not something that Yellow Springs created. That's not something that Terry Holden created. These are guidelines from public health. And as a public employee of a public institution, these are guidelines that we have to follow. If we go 100% virtual, would it be possible to have an option for some parents who need childcare to have their student go to the school for a few days a week? Again, I've seen this question before. I think for me, it's a capacity issue. Do I have people that are capable and willing to do that? I understand the strain, and it's not small. What date are you planning to have the decision made as to which option our district will go with? Hopefully by Sunday. Will there be leniency for students who become ill, for students whose family members become ill? What might that look like? The answer is yes. And hopefully we can be empathetic enough to step back and say, getting healthy is our first priority. And so we would work with that. There is legislation around this for both adults and students in terms of if you contract COVID and have to be off work or off school. Will open enrollment students be able to participate with either of the options, or should we begin outreaching our city school district? I'm going to tell everyone, if they've received indication from Yellow Springs that you have been accepted as a Yellow Springs student, that's how we treat you at this point. So if you have that communication, you are a Yellow Springs student. With option 2, would it be possible to use school space for supervised online education? So kids would participate in the synchronized online programming with adults to assist and supervise safely. You know, I think that's the way we're going to have to start thinking. You know, I don't know kind of completely in my head what that would look like, but yes, I think, again, whether it's hybrid or a full remote, this is the way as a community we're going to have to start thinking about this. So I appreciate the question. Would a hybrid schedule be flexible with students who have other health issues making them susceptible to COVID? I would say a student who has health issues making them susceptible to COVID should do nothing but an online environment. How do you plan to engage students online for a full day if we go with option 2? Again, I'm gonna throw this to my colleagues who are on here, but first I'm gonna say that as a former English teacher, I think what I would do would be to balance the synchronous pieces with asynchronous pieces. You know, we have books, we have other things that students can do when they are not face-to-face like this. We have physical education classes, we have art classes and music classes. So how do we balance that daily schedule? By providing breaks for students in any type of remote environment.
Is it okay if I speak for a second? I think too, the other piece that we need to focus our attention to as a collective is the social, emotional, and mental health support of our young people. We know that the in-person experiences at school are part of what create those cognitive pathways for our students and assist in learning. And so balancing that engagement with that piece, or balancing the academic engagement with that need for social emotional guidance and attention to social support, because as educators we know that those human interactions are so essential to learning. So that engagement piece is really it's at the front and center of our decision making and on our hearts and minds as educators.
Also, another way I think that we can think about when we're talking about engaging, having our students engaged and working for a full day, when you're talking about a full day study groups or something like that, would be something that students can do. The way I'm imagining it, I think when we all think about what a full day online looks like, some people are thinking about it sitting in front of the computer, going from one class to another like you would at school. And I know some schools have done that. I think for us, and I'm going to throw out there the PBL word because we are a PBL school, and one of the things that we work with our students to do is pursue to dive deeper in the instruction that we're giving and to work collaboratively with their peers. So part of this learning, and I'm probably talking maybe third grade and up, I know the younger grades would be a bit harder to do, but students can reach out and work with each other as part of their full day schooling. It doesn't have to be strictly with the teacher. So those are the kinds of conversations we're having of how to get that kind of learning culture happening online. So that's what we've been working on as well.
I do want to add that with the state guidance about how we track attendance and participation, certainly when you're in synchronous meetings with teachers, that counts, and how much time it takes to complete an assignment, but also that collaborative time, that equates to attendance as well. I missed a question, so I'm going to go a little back. Could you explain a little more in depth about how theater and orchestra band classes would function for students? So there's clear guidance from Greene County Public Health that there should be no choirs, period, no singing. There's also clear guidance that there should be no instrumental music that requires blowing or movement of air. So the challenge is on us. Is there a way we can get software so that students do things at home, record that, submit that, and then it's mixed together? Are there instruments that we can teach, guitar, keyboard, that don't require the blowing of breath or singing? Again, that's up to our creativity, but there's pretty clear guidance about those courses in particular because there are high transmission rates, data for high transmission rates, particularly with choirs. Can you, I think it's, sorry. Can you provide an overview of potential staffing implications, i.e. layoffs with the various options? I think everybody is smart enough to know that work changes when you go to different environments. The treasurer and I have had many discussions, and we will have discussions with the board about jobs, no matter what path we take. It is my belief that we can figure this out and shift folks' responsibilities to support remote learning, whether it's 3 days a week or 5 days a week. There are some positions that I can't say at this point. The work would have to change. Perhaps the time would have to change. So I don't have anything more definitive than that. I will give you an example, and then I'll let Nancy speak because this applies, quite honestly, more to our classified staff. And so in the spring, when we did food service delivery, we deployed some of our instructional assistants and our bus drivers to deliver food. That was a monumental task, quite honestly, and we couldn't have done it without them. So when I say a kind of a shifting of job responsibilities and times, that's what I'm referring to. I don't know, Nancy, if you want to add anything to this.
I do want to add that our support staff has been brainstorming with many ideas using our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers. We can help with small groups online, do study groups, do reading groups. So these are just some of the ideas that we've been brainstorming.
Thank you. Lunch. In our safety plan, I'm assuming this question about lunch refers to, hang on. Hang on. My questions are going like this. I'm assuming our question about lunch refers to if we're in person. It's going to take some coordination. We would have to utilize multiple locations to eat lunch, and we would have to have a different procedure for kids to go through the lunch line. Whether we would still offer hot lunches, I would say yes, but it's again going to have to look different. So whether it's students lining up, if we're talking about Mills Lawn, lining up in the gym and then one at a time going through the line. I've already had a meeting with our food service provider to talk about any possibility. So they are right there with us to support that. I think if we go all remote, we can certainly provide food as we have in the past. We would have a slightly different schedule, but that can be done. But quite honestly, the buildings were working on lunch plans, and we kind of put a pause on that to see, as things change, we have to see how we're going to be back in. But certainly, we know we can provide lunch. It's just going to look different from how it looks or how it's looked this past year. Okay. If we do the hybrid solution, would there be a possibility of asking the switch group to better fit parents' work needs? Maybe. Here's the difficulty with a hybrid. Again, then it becomes a balancing act. So what we would have to do is say, okay, who lives in one household, right? Because all of those kids should follow the same schedule. So the answer to that question would be maybe, and it's all about the balancing of groups that would go on an A day or a B day. We may well lose some students and staff if we opened in-person school. Understood. Understood. Okay. Again, if you have already been accepted in open enrollment, you are accepted. A college student isn't even online for 6 hours a day for synchronous and asynchronous learning. Again, I clearly I've not done a good job of answering this, so it's not that we expect your kindergarten student to be online for 6 hours straight. That's not the expectation. If option 1A B is selected, who will teach the in-person kids if the school is eventually shut down? So if option 1A B is selected and the students who've not selected the online option 1B, they're taught by their regular teachers if the whole school is shut down. I mean, everybody moves out at that point to a remote teaching environment. Can I explain why teachers feel strongly about the 100% remote learning option? They can.
You want me to start this one, Kate? Well, we took we did a survey of all our members to kind of see where everybody was, and overwhelmingly it was everybody wanting, not everybody, majority wanting 100% remote learning option. It's related specifically to a child safety, staff safety, community safety. we just felt that as we're starting to have conversations about how to get back to school and open, we're watching COVID-19 numbers rise. And then we're also having meetings trying to figure out the logistics of how to start school. And there were moments when we were thinking, we're not the experts to know how to do this properly. We need health experts in here. And so it got a little bit overwhelming trying to make decisions on how to get all our students back in the classroom while watching the pandemic numbers rise. So absolutely, it's about safety, the number one thing. And our hope is that we can go 100% virtual until we can see or understand more about this pandemic of how to get people back in the buildings. All teachers want to work with students in the classroom, but not at the expense of people's lives.
I suppose the only thing I would reiterate is that last point, is that, you know, even the spring, I mean, for all of us, the spring was a very crisis-driven time, and the thing that educators lamented the most was those in-person experiences that we couldn't have with each other and that we also couldn't have with our students. And so please know that on our hearts and minds is trying to get back to an in-person experience when it's safe to do so. But as Sada said and described, as we're watching conditions devolve around us, it just doesn't seem as if it's the appropriate time. And so we're advocating to take a step back and to really be thoughtful about this. And while other districts may be making different decisions, we have the ability to make a different one and to consider all of these things that have been discussed tonight and to address them as a community collaboratively.
Folks have questions about my saying teachers should teach from their classrooms. I think that's a discussion I can have with the YSEA, and I do have reasons for saying that. If teachers in high-risk categories cannot return this year due to a decision to return to in-person learning, will their jobs, income, will they be able to work from home? Again, it's really important that we follow the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And in that's all of these things are stipulated, and there are multiple levels, and that would be a discussion that I could have directly with the employee. Concerning option 2, for parents who have challenges with children attending the synchronous class times, could they opt for the 100% third-party remote learning option? You know, we certainly can provide a 100% third-party remote learning option. Up to this point, there's been little interest from parents in it, but the answer to that is yes. Would having a full synchronous daily class with a full curriculum available and also record it for students who need asynchronous work? Again, part of the requirements of teachers, again, whether we're in hybrid or full-time remote, is they are going to have to create a schedule for students and parents. We have to equate time to ODE. I mean, you know, I've said it before, you've heard me say it before, they're going to double down on compliance, which is okay because we're doing what we need to do. So many activities count towards attendance and participation. So it would be a teacher creating a schedule or teams of teachers based upon the age of student and based upon what's developmentally appropriate for that student. So we would be able to address that. I don't know that there's a hardline approach, like you miss this. I think when we see students miss synchronous learning, that raises a red flag for us. Are you okay? Is everything okay at home? Do we need to provide extra support? That's all. In the ideal, what we've heard, honestly, as pushback from parents in the spring is, we need a schedule. This was kind of, hey, not rigorous, not enough time, not a schedule. So I think we can figure these things out. And this applies, folks, whether we're hybrid or all remote. We have to create this. Could we identify kids whose families must go to work outside of the home and offer face-to-face to them only? Again, that becomes a capacity issue. And it really is highly dependent on staffing. And that's the clearest answer I can give to that right now. Could you? Again, I think I've answered that. So I see a lot of comments, which are great, and we're going to capture all of this. How will student work be assessed for students who struggle with online learning? Again, I think even in the spring, we tried to be deliberate about assessment, but because this is really our curriculum, what we do day in and day out, we need to be fine-tuned and pretty direct about how we communicate our assessment expectations. Again, I will tell you, this is going to look a little more like, quote, what people call real school, and that all students will be required to take a benchmark assessment, whether they're here or remotely. That's a requirement of our remote learning plan. We can do it. It's what we would do if the students were here. They will take the STAR reading assessment or the STAR math assessment, and what that does is it tells them, hey, here's where this child is, and here's where you need to begin. But all of the assessment, again, that's information that comes from the teachers, and I think knowing Yellow Springs teachers, I think as a group, they're responsive to kids, and kids who struggle, particularly in this time and place. This is not a normal time, and it is not a normal place for us. Have we reached out for assistance to colleges that have experience teaching virtually? No, not formally. I do know many of them use learning management systems such as Blackboard or Canvas, etc. But I appreciate that suggestion. Thank you. Any type of IEP meetings, etc., any type of meetings like that we can have, and all IEPs and plans will be in place. The positive testing that's in our safety document. If teachers only need to interact with students 2 to 3 hours a school day, why wouldn't we switch to a 3-hour school day and reduce the HR cost? It doesn't exactly work that way. And we have a contract. It's more than the face-to-face, maybe 2 to 3 hours, but there is a lot more work behind that. Yes, all students will be provided with a Chromebook. The third-party option, I believe in my communication, I gave examples of several, and they are a combination of recorded, etc. videos. I don't believe any of it is live. If things with COVID are worse now than when they were when the school shut down in March, why would we open them now? I don't know. I wish I would, I wish I knew. I'm not the governor of the state of Ohio. I'm not the president. Again, I'm going to cycle back to the beginning. These are decisions that are being placed on superintendents. I get it. It's my job, and I'm going to make the decision, but I do not have answers for you. Will there be any additional tutoring for students who need help with reading, math, etc. online? The answer to that is yes. I'm so sorry, folks. These questions, I so appreciate your time tonight. These questions are rolling in so quickly, and I'm gonna take a few more, and then maybe if I haven't answered your question, we'll capture all of this. And then I will certainly respond in writing. Or as always, you can feel free to email me or give me a call. In a blended, synchronous, asynchronous, all remote option with Yellow Springs teachers, could we develop options for small controlled working groups? Yes, I think that was discussed earlier. Yes, what that would look like, I don't know. I think it's up to us to figure that out. How soon do you think we'll have a decision? I've given parents till end of day Friday really to think about this. Again, this is not your, I don't want you to think, oh my God, I said this and I really meant this. This is so I can get input to make a decision. The sooner I get parent responses back, the sooner I can make a decision, and I will know that based upon our numbers. So my assistant tracks that. Anyway, I think I'm going to end this here, and I promise I will answer your questions if I did not do so tonight. I want to thank Kate and Sarah and Nancy for sitting in tonight. And I want to thank all of you, parents and community members. This is hard. Somebody asked me, doesn't this keep me up at night? Yes, it does. It does. But we'll figure it out, and we'll figure it out together. So I appreciate it. Please reach out. Thank you for your time. Hopefully this wasn't so disjointed. It felt completely disjointed to me, but this is our new way of being for a little bit. So I thank you all, and take care. Stay safe.